Hi, I'm Lynette, and this is the Capsule Garden. So, this is Louisiana, Zone 9A, and as you can see behind me, I have a couple of raised beds that are pretty empty. So, my idea for the Capsule Garden is I've been doing a lot of canning, and I just keep thinking about how the food in the jars seems like little time capsules from the garden. And a lot of what I've been canning has been coming from the store. I've grown a few things, but not a lot. And like many of you, I watch a ton of homesteader videos and gardening videos and things on here and on some other platforms that have a little shorter duration. And I always see their beautiful gardens and think, how did they get there though? Like, if they're starting from scratch, how did they get there? I know they started from scratch, and a lot of times they'll show the beginning of the season, and I'm like, yes, but from real scratch, like day one. Where did you start? And I'm not exactly at day one, but I just wanted to show that really in a way for me, so I can kind of see the progress, because a lot of times it's hard once we get something going to see where it came from. But for anybody like me who just thinks, that's great, but you already started this and you've had this garden for 10 years. I want to see it from the bare dirt. So, my husband and I started this, oh gosh, really last year. We had a family member who was moving off of some property, and there were tons and tons and tons of these garden bricks. And so they had tons and tons of these bricks. And so we went over there for several weekends in a row and dug these bricks out of the property and brought them home, because although it was a lot of effort, they were free. And so we ended up with something like 400 plus bricks. And so we ended up building these raised beds. And I'm going to back up and let you see what that looks like. Let's see. So they are, I'll have to measure them again, but they are about 22 feet long and about 18 inches deep. And they're a little wider than I really wanted them to be. They're about, 3.5 to, I think they're 3.5 to 4 feet wide. So I'll have to measure them, but it was a lot of dirt. I ordered in 6 yards to fill this size. I used an online dirt calculator, and I ordered in 6 yards of dirt. And it wasn't just dirt. It was actually specifically a raised bed soil for garden, for a raised bed garden specifically for vegetables. And so the reason he had another raised bed mix when I talked to him, and he kept asking me, "Is it for vegetables?" And I said yes. And he said that he wanted to make sure he gave me the right mix, because so the mix was native topsoil, sand, because we are in South Louisiana and drainage is definitely an issue, which I know good drainage is an issue for anybody in their garden, if they're bringing in dirt. But so it's native topsoil with a mix of sand, because our native topsoil has a little bit more of a clay content, and then it also has compost. I believe it was 50% topsoil, 30% compost, and then the rest was sand. But he was wanting to know if it was vegetables because of the type of compost. So what he would give us for compost for ornamentals might be a little too hot for the vegetables. So I would have to ask him. I don't know if that was because of like the ratio's different, or because it was just a more mature compost that he gave us. But we hauled in 6 yards of dirt, and that filled this. I think we ended up going back for maybe an extra yard just because we wanted to top it off. And so we ended up right around 7 yards of dirt total in these beds, of that raised bed mix. I keep calling it dirt. So we did that. I'm sorry, you can see Chuck Norris is my sweet little orange cat, and he just loves these garden beds. I hope he doesn't decide to fertilize them. So we'll take a little walk around, and I'll show you what we have and how we got it, and kind of what I'm thinking about for the rest of the yard, because I don't know what I'm doing. And if you're like me, you don't know what you're doing either. And so maybe I can ask my questions and you can ask your questions and we can figure it out. So, like I said, these are the beds, and we have 4 bricks in height, and at the bottom you can see it peeking out with my weeds and my water. We put down, weed barrier cloth, and then on top of the weed barrier cloth, I layered some cardboard, and then on top of that, I actually filled the bottoms with a lot of broken branches and limbs. We have this oak tree that likes to shed quite a bit, and so I filled it with that. It wasn't really, I kind of wanted to do the Kugelhof thing, but I may not even be pronouncing that right. Y'all correct me. But they weren't really big, logs like they used for that. They were really smaller sticks. But I'm hoping that one part of the point was that it would help reduce the amount of dirt that we needed. And two, I was hoping that, over time they'll decay and we'll get some benefit out of them. Maybe not as much as as we would with another method, but that's okay. I think every little bit probably helps. So you'll see there's a little bit of a curve here because, we got distracted in our project and we built these beds, and then it took us a long, long time, maybe 8 months or so before we got around to getting the dirt to fill them. And so everything's a mess, y'all. Like I said, we're in zone 9A, and so we're actually this is the day before Hurricane Ida is supposed to make landfall. And so we have been already getting some rain from that. And, it's very wet here anyway, but it's a little soggy. So when we filled it up, the only thing I have planted so far are beans. And what I have here, you can see on my very fancy fork indicators here. These are the Blue Lake bush beans. I still have enough time, assuming this hurricane doesn't murder everything, but I still have enough time to get some beans harvested. So there's some little bean sprouts coming up, and there's also a little weed I need to pull. But I've got a few little bean sprouts coming up. I don't know, I know you can see that one. I don't know if you can see that one in the distance there. But I've got 3 rows here of Blue Lake bush. And then over here, these little sprouts are looking really good. These are the dragon tongue beans. And I got all of these seeds from Baker Creek. I have never had these dragon tongue beans before. Now, they're really pretty, when they are on the bush and when they're fresh, but then once you cook them, they lose their really pretty color and they're just green, but that's okay. They'll still be nice fresh beans that I can, can or blanch and freeze or whatever. We prefer blanched and frozen beans, but I will absolutely be canning some simply because, like I said, we have a hurricane coming tomorrow, so hurricanes are a big deal here where we live, and we do lose power. And although we have a generator that runs our freezer and our fridge and stuff, it's not a whole house generator. It's enough to keep us from losing all of our food. We just we would like to have as much canned as possible because it's shelf stable. So that way I can, have things cooked up and on the shelf, and we don't really have to worry about losing all that food. Y'all have to pardon me. I don't make a lot of videos, so if you see my eyes keep darting to the other side, it's because I don't know what I'm doing here, and I keep looking at my own face like I'm talking to me and not to the camera. I don't know if you've ever done that before. And then also, I don't know if there's going to be smudges, but I dropped my camera in the dirt, and as you saw when I was kind of panning around a minute ago, we for the rest of the yard we're bringing in fill dirt, and that is definitely a drainage mix, so it's like a 50-50 dirt sand mix, and I really think we got a little bit more than 50% sand. It's a very sandy. which isn't terrible, you know, because of the drainage, but it's hard to walk on. And so I dropped my phone, and I think there was some sand around my little lens protector. So there might have been a little hazy edge there for a minute before I realized it and cleaned that out. So anyway, back to the to what I've planned. We put in these cattle panels, and I'm sure, you know, if you watch any gardening videos, you've seen tons of videos with these cattle panels. They I didn't put them exactly on the edge. I set them back just a hair because I wanted to plant on the inside. And so what I planted on the inside, and they don't have nearly as much growth on them. I have 4 sections here where I planted winged beans, and I've also never eaten winged beans, so I'm kind of excited about that. I don't know, I think this is just some grass coming up from my straw. I'm guessing it had a little bit of grass seed because this right here is actually the winged bean coming up. This, I'm gonna have to, you know, pull all that out and probably like move the straw back. But there's a little wing bean coming up there, and I'm gonna have to look. I planted, it may be too much, I don't know. I planted 4 on each inside panel, so I put, you know, 1 in here. That's the second one. I put 1 close to the edge. Hi, Chuck Norris. Hi, Kitty. Hi. You want to smell that grass? Yeah. I put 1 there, 1 there, 1 about there, and 1 over here. And so there's 4 on each one. So that's probably way too much. And if I need to, I can always cut them back because I have 4 over here. And then on the other side of the panel, I have the same amount over here. So I have no idea. We'll just figure it out. And then down here, these are wing beans as well. And so I'm not seeing any sprouts over here yet. I did read that the wing beans can be a little difficult to germinate. So what I did was I took the seeds and first I soaked them for like 24 hours. And then I scarified them. I'm not sure. I think it's scarified, which basically means you just kind of cut that outer, it's got like a tough outer membrane, almost like a shell. And you just kind of scratch through the surface. If any of them, after you've soaked them for 24 hours, if any of them didn't swell up, like the ones that swelled up, they were soft enough to take on the water. But the ones that didn't swell up, it means that, you know, their exterior was maybe a little tougher, a little thicker, and they needed some help. So the video that I watched, you can do it with a knife, you can do it with scissors. The video that I saw, the lady actually took some small nail clippers and just kind of clipped at that outer, you know, edge, and just enough to break it open. You don't really want to cut into the bean, and then put them back into soak. And then after they, you know, soaked a little bit, maybe another 12 to 24 hours, they should have swollen up. Any of them that didn't swell probably aren't going to sprout for you, but once they swell, they're really ideally suited for this area because they are an Asian bean and they really like heat and humidity, which we have plenty of. So I'm just hoping that any of this actually survives the storm. They're tiny little sprouts, but you know, I think they actually might fare better than the really big ones because there's nothing for them to break. But we'll see. I might end up with nothing. I don't know. And then we might just have to do some Canon videos of stuff from the store, which I'm completely okay with. Like, for me, this is all what we call down here lanyap, a little something extra. It's just, you know, if it works, great. And if it doesn't, I'll have another plan. Not a big deal. So anyway, that's sort of the plan. And hopefully I can come back in a couple of days after this storm and I still have some beans. I also have a bunch of ground cherries that I planted in like an old plastic egg crate that I poked drainage holes in. So I'm going to bring them in so they're not out here by the storm. I've got blueberry bushes out here. It's such a mess, y'all, but it's just too wet to mow right now. So I don't know if you can, the light's not really all that great. I don't know if you can see all that well, but I have blueberry bushes here. I have 5 of them, and they really need to be trimmed. I don't think this one's gonna make it. This was one of those little container ones, and he's just not very happy. But these guys, and I'll maybe come back when I'm trimming them, and I'll give you kind of what they are and what I thought of the berries and the size and everything. These guys have some really long pieces here, and I was planning on cutting them back anyway, just because, you know, there's the bush down there, and then they've got these really long arms. So I just kind of felt like I needed to trim them down anyway, just because, you know, I want them to kind of grow in a little bit more compact way and not be kind of all crazy and wild. But I'm worried with the storm coming that those branches will break. And rather than have them break, I'd rather trim them and hopefully, you know, not have as much damage. So that's kind of the plan. Hurricane prep, you know, we have everything. We have fuel to run our generator, to keep our freezer going. My silly husband, I love him to death, but he doesn't listen to me. I don't know if y'all have that problem, but we had ordered a huge load of meat from our meat supplier, and he drove up to Kentwood, Louisiana today to go pick that up. And so we have, you know, a truckload of meat, you know, at least a 6-month supply for us, headed our way the day before hurricane, which is not ideal. I told him, yeah, I would call them and say, sorry, we're doing hurricane prep and you guys are out of harm's way, but we're not. And we will come get that next week, Lord willing, and we have power, you know, kind of thing. But he gave me the no, it'll be fine. So hopefully it'll be fine, because otherwise what's going to happen is I'm going to have to break out the pressure canner and do a lot of pressure canning with no air conditioning in South Louisiana in August. And so I'm not super keen on that, but we'll do what we got to do, right? But if I got to be pressure canning some roast and some ground beef, that's what we're gonna do. But we are ready, and I do have emergency stuff ready to go if we really need to, you know, make a last minute out the door kind of thing. So anyway, I'll check back with you in a few days and give you an update on what happened with my little seedlings and whether they survived the storm. Bye.